everybody, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to discuss some advanced data filtering, also known as using the AND operator or operator. Also, I'm going to show you how to use IN. IN is often used the way like is used, but in my opinion, IN is a lot easier than like. And then in addition to IN, we'll be talking about not. So to get right into it, let's say you have a table, the products table, but you want to do some filtering on this. You can do select from products. So I'm gonna actually include some columns here. Prod ID, prod price, prod name from products. What I'm doing here is I'm picking these three columns, bringing back their data from products, where the vend ID is equal to DLL01. This is just a vendor ID. And prod price is less than or equal to 4, semicolon. Remember to add that semicolon. What this will do, and I'll go ahead and add vend ID as one of the columns. What this will do, it'll bring back all the data from these columns where the vend ID is DLL01 and the prod price is less than or equal to 4. So if I run this, as you can see, the vend ID, these columns are really wide, the vend ID is DLL01 and all of the prod prices are less than 4. That's where this AND comes in. If I had just done DLL01 without and prod price equal to or less than or equal to 4, it would have brought back prices that were in like all over the place. So let's try that. And yeah, so it includes a price here, $4.99. But since I wrote and prod price less than or equal to 4, it's only going to bring back those DLL01 records with a prod price less than or equal to 4. So that's like a very basic use of and. We can try one more, like select prod name, prod price from products, where the vend ID equals DLL01 and vend ID equals BRS01. This should result in no records coming back because there are no products with 2 different vendor IDs. So if I run this, see, nothing comes back because let's say I select data from the product table, all the data. As you can see, each record only has 1 vendor ID. So if I were to bring back, or if I were to try to run this, it won't bring back anything because there is no record with both DLL01 and BRS01 as the vendor ID, which is why it comes back with nothing. So there is something called OR, an OR operator. So if I tried that again, prod name, prod price, from products, from vend ID, where it equals DLL01 or vend ID equals BRS01. That means it'll bring back all the data from these columns where the vendor ID is DLL01 or the vendor ID is BRS01. This is where you need to make sure you add a semicolon and write your SQL properly. Okay, so see, the result is data from BRS01. These are the first 3. And then DLL01. The reason it brought back the data from both of these vendor IDs is because I did vend ID equals DLL01 or vendor ID equals BRS01. So sometimes when using the OR operator and operator both in unison, it can it can get kind of confusing. So let me give you an example. So again, select from products. This brings back all the data from the products table. But let's say you want to filter it by a vendor ID and a product price. So let's do like select vendor ID, prod name, prod price from products, where the vendor ID is DLL01 or vend ID equals BRS01 and prod price is greater than or equal to 10. So if you're a novice SQL user, you're probably looking at this and thinking, okay, cool. So it's going to bring a vendor ID, either the DLL01 or BRS01 vendor IDs, and it'll bring back only the ones that have a price greater than or equal to 10. So when you run this, it brings back the records. But if you look at this, the record set, it has BRS01, DLL01, but only one of the records is greater than or equal to 10. That's this one. That's because when writing SQL statements with or and, you need to be aware that there is a way that SQL reads this. So the way that this was read was ands usually, or rather always, will get a higher ranking in the order of evaluation by SQL. So the way this was read and the way SQL decided to do the output was select these products where the product price is greater than or equal to 10 and the vendor ID is BRS01. Hence why the only BRS01 record that came back was 1199. Or vend ID is DLL01. So it brought back, so essentially it read it like this, where it just looked at these two areas and brought that back, or any record with DLL01, which is why it brought back all these records with DLL01 and their respective prices, even though they are less than 10, because it didn't consider those to be with this. This line was instead corresponding to the BRS01. So if you want to bring back either of these vendor IDs and both of them have to abide by this code, then you have to include parentheses between this or surrounding this, because it means where the vendor ID is DLL01 or vendor ID is BRS01, that's like a set, and prod price is greater than or equal to 10. So the prod price will be greater or equal to 10 no matter which one of these vendor IDs is brought back. So if I run that, then it's only bringing back one record, and that's the BRS01 record with a product price greater than or equal to 10 at $11.99. And it's not bringing anything back for DLL01 because I guess DLL01 does not have a product with a price that is greater than or equal to 10. Just to give another example, like let's say I did 5, or rather like 3. And this keeps. Actually, let's try 4. If I did 4, then see it's bringing back a DLL01 record with $4.99 and the BRS01 records with $5.99, $8.99, $11.99, all of which are greater than 4 because we put the parentheses around the vendor IDs so that SQL can understand that it's these and this line of code right here. I'll go ahead and do one more example on this just to clarify. So again, let's say we do and vend ID is BRS01 and or vend ID is BRS01 and prod price is greater than or equal to 4 semicolon. If I run this, then as you can see, there's a bunch of records here, DLL01 records here that have 349. Again, it's because the way that SQL is reading this is that it's product price is greater than or equal to 4 and vendor ID is BRS01. So it brought back a BRS01 record here with a product price of $5.99. Another one here, $8.99, $11.99, because this is what it's looking at. And then the way it reads this is or vendor ID. So it's just bringing back any DLL01 vendor ID. And 3 of them are less than 4 because it's not paying attention to this and. However, if I went ahead and added the parentheses here so that the SQL can read this properly and the way we want it to, and then I run it, then it brings back exactly what we want. $5.99, $8.99, $11.99 for the BRS01 records because they're all greater than or equal to 4. And then the one $4.99 record with vendor ID DLL01 because that's greater than or equal to 4. So that is how you use or and in unison. It can get confusing at times and definitely requires a lot of practice. But once you get used to it, you'll understand the logic and you'll be able to write these without too much hiccup or too much redoing the process. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. And my next video will be on the in operator as well as the not operator. Thanks.